Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 3 and episode number 340 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryo Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day is Monday, March 18th, 2024, and it is going to be a wonderful day here at the Beaver Lodge. It's going to be an especially wonderful day here at the Beaver Lodge because it's renovation day.
Oh, so what's taking place?
They are going to be removing all the siding and putting insulation, proper insulation, and then we're going to be picking new siding and changing the color of our house.
Oh, cool.
Now, all of that's not going to be done today, but they're going to start today.
That's
And
good.
yes, because remember, this is the renovations that would take 1 year, and we're in year 3.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Yes, so I'm very excited. We were actually talking this week. I was like, should we call the guys? Because we gave them a 30% deposit last October, and we thought that we might be on the list starting sometime in December, and to get the work done. And well, the whole winter's gone, and the work isn't done yet. This isn't, maybe he dropped off the planet. Maybe we should give him a call because it has been 6 months and they haven't called us back. They didn't call us sometime in December saying, it's not going to happen. It might be another 3 months. We just heard nothing.
Right.
So we are like looking up his number and the phone rings. It's like, hey, and this was on Friday. It says, you ready for me to come on Monday? It's like, that's not a lot of warning, but yes, we'll make that happen. Thank you very much because we have been waiting long enough. So yes, that will be the third of the 4 big projects. And once that one's done, then we'll be able to have the people come in and do the spray foam of the spare bedroom that was never insulated at all and gets down to 9 degrees Celsius in the winter.
Yeah.
Yes. And put some extra whatever insulation that we need in the attics and that type of stuff. But we've had to do things like, I know you've seen our place, but we sort of have this like wooden fence on the back that sort of comes around and a deck, so it abuts against the siding. So we had to actually like pull some of the fence apart. And it's like, our beautiful fence. It's like, no, so that they can have access to it. Fortunately, my sweetie took a carpentry course last term, so he was able to do it himself.
That's good. That's good. He's got a little bit of the training in now, so
he's got a little bit, yes. But so he spent most of the day yesterday doing that while I was at rehearsal. And speaking of that, I'm also very happy because I have heard that of our 9 shows, 4 of them are sold out. There are 2 of them that only have a few tickets left, and the other 3, well, we don't know, but we are over 70% sold for the entire show, probably more now because we only had 2 shows sold out at the time we found that out. So it would be nice to play to sold out crowds, all 9 shows.
Yeah, especially after, a couple of years of having to slog it out because of the whole pandemic thing. Right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Kit Tabby G asks, are we eventually going to solar panels? We would like to, but we are not because our roof is facing the wrong way.
yeah, so it wouldn't work.
Yeah,
Might be able to put
depending
them
where
on
the
the shed,
trees
though.
are. Might be able to put them on the shed.
Yeah.
Might be able to put them on the shed, but that would be another project if we're doing that because I think we're dropping at least $50,000 in the things that we've done. I mean, the
Jesus.
heat pump, and the insulation alone
Yeah.
are close to 50 to have the whole house done. And I think having the whole house done is close to 30,000.
And did you get some grants or rebates in return for that or something? Isn't there like a
Yeah, we will be. We've gotten
tax credit?
yeah, we've applied and we were approved. So we've been given I think up to 30% of the total of the grants in advance to help with down payments. And then once we get all the work accomplished, then we have the environmental assessment person come in because we had one come in at the beginning to get our baseline. They will do the assessment, and when we send that in, we'll get the rebates from the federal government and from the municipal program here in Kingston. If we achieve a certain percentage of GHG reductions, which we think we already have with the heat pump alone, because we've gone from like using X number of cubic meters of gas a month to like almost like 13 cubic meters. Like when, sometimes when the temperature drops a bit, the furnace kicks in before the heat pump starts.
Right.
So we have a little bit of furnace use. So we think that we probably have already achieved that with the heat pump alone. So it's,
Insulation will make a big difference too.
yeah. And the city one will forgive 5,000 of that loan. And the city one is interest free, I believe, for 20 years and just gets put on our tax bill. So if we do move, the loan stays with the house, doesn't move with us, but the
Okay.
federal one stays with us even if we move. And that one we have 10 years to pay.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's
if we had to borrow the money, if you think about it, like when we applied for the loans, the interest rates were still fairly low. Right, it was before the rise. But today, if we were to apply for those loans, we'd be, if I was taking them onto just my line of credit, my home equity line of credit, I'd be looking at about 8% interest
That's a lot of money.
on about like $35,000
Yeah.
to $40,000. That's a lot of money.
That's
So
a
that's
lot
a lot of money that's being saved. That's the one, the one quote unquote good thing about the interest rates rising is that for programs like these, it actually ends up becoming a bigger cost savings the more interest rates rise. So, yeah, we're pretty we're pretty happy. It's like we're gonna do like thank you, Trudeau, for making it less expensive for us to get a heat pump. Thanks.
It's just, the irony is lost
You
on
damn
people.
do-gooder. Made the offer so attractive we couldn't resist it. Now we're just blowing money. We could have spent that on a vacation, but instead we're insulating the home. Thanks, Trudeau.
Well, creating work for people, right? So make work projects. Everybody's getting paid. So, I mean,
getting us to contribute to the local economy, you bastard.
yeah, my terrible, terrible human being.
Oh, man. We's just playing, kids. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, The Peppermaster, The Miss V Mysteries from Corbin Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We're going to have a fun show for you today, kits and cubs. And as you can tell by the fact that our intro has been extended, we have a little remix there today. But before we do anything else, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health doing today, sir?
Jerry's out on that one, to be honest with you. I'm so tired right now. Our lovely 80-pound doggo decided to jump on me while I was in bed at 12:30 last night. I went to bed at 10 o'clock. I was really tired. As anybody was witness, you could see that I had a couple of beers on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. A couple. I saw you like picking up all the cans at one point and going like, when did all those go down? I didn't see all of them open.
Over the course of from I'd say about 1 o'clock until we shut her down around 10:30, and something like 9 pints of Guinness. So.
Oh, okay. So you started.
I rarely. I very rarely ever drink that much. I don't know what prompted me to just keep going. I just did though, and I was feeling it yesterday. Yeah, I was feeling it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was feeling it yesterday too, but in a different way, actually. I'm how do you put it? I'm not the 22-year-old Beaver I was when I was
No, no.
yeah, or I should say 21-year-old Beaver when I was at the height of my dance. And well, this is a musical, and even though it's not like big dancing and all that kind of stuff, I'm old now.
Yeah, you
Or
feel it.
if not old, older.
It's not the
And
age; it's the mileage. Really, is what
yeah,
it is.
and it's like after rehearsal yesterday, the my right, I called it old man hip, but it's not really the hip. It's more in the like the little that back lower quadrant
Hmm.
right above your butt cheek,
It's so
and on the
sciatica.
side. And yeah, that when you're getting out of a car, the side that you push off the seat to get your leg up. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh, I'm feeling that today. This might take me a couple of seconds. Thank you.
Mm.
So it's one of those I can still get down. It's just getting back up that takes me a couple of extra seconds.
Yeah,
I
I
was
hear
like,
you.
"Ooh, yeah, I'm feeling that today." So yeah, I'm yesterday evening I was feeling my age a little bit.
Well, as evidenced by the chat, I will let you know that I did something today that I've never ever done before in my life, and I don't ever plan on repeating. But I did it
Ooh,
anyway because we were in a rush. Got up, got this prepped and ready to go, and she goes, "She really has to go out." I'm like, "Okay." So I grabbed the dog, and I'm like, "I'm not even putting pants on." I went out in my pajamas. I just didn't give a shit.
yep.
It's something I swore I'd never do, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm taking her out for 5 minutes so she can pee, and then bringing her back in, which is exactly what we did. So I wore pajamas outside of my house for the first time and last time in my life.
I don't think that's true.
I've never done
It
that.
might have been the first time. I'm not sure it's going to be the last time you have a
Oh,
dog.
it will be. I guarantee you. I guarantee you it's the last time. I was just like, I'm so tired. I don't give a damn right now. And, wearing warm flannels, and it's cold and snowy out. Matter of fact, here, look, you can take a look out the window. You can see that there's a little bit of a dusting of snow. It's
A
not,
little bit, yes.
yeah, it's
We
kind of miserable out right now. It's gray and yucky, and
mm,
you know, so yeah.
yeah. All right, kids and cubs. We've had a great weekend as well. We had our pupcast, as Mr. Grizzly mentioned. Um, Bit of a marathon. Our pupcasts are long enough, but given that we didn't have to actually leave the bar by 7 or
Hmm.
something, so people coming in to watch the hockey
Yeah.
game or baseball game could do it, we kind of went on. So thank you to everyone who joined us. We had some people and kits who appeared on our podcast for the very first time last weekend.
Hmm.
And it was very lovely to meet you and chat with you. It was a joy. So thank you very much for coming into our home that way. And then yesterday, we finally fulfilled our commitment with the leader of the opposition of New Brunswick, Madame Suzanne Holt, by having an interview with her in French. Her office, because New Brunswick is an officially bilingual province, was
Hmm.
waiting to have both products, the one in English and the one in French, to start spreading the news around to their own constituents. They wanted to do it at the same time. So we got to do that. It was a shorter conversation in French than in English because we had less time. That's mostly my fault with the rehearsals and everything. I'm trying to squeeze in things when I can and where I can.
And you got the times mixed up again.
I did get the times mixed up. I keep on thinking it's 1 hour earlier instead of 1 hour later. I
Yeah, it's
do
1 hour
not know
later
why I
there.
do that. Yeah.
You're like, no, it's supposed to be 6 o'clock. I'm like, it is 6 o'clock in
Her
Atlantic
time.
Canada. 5
Yeah.
o'clock here. You're like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Yep. Yep. I had just like waltzed in from rehearsal and I was about to sit down and, do some reading and, listen to segments of the last episode we did with her. And
Hmm.
I was sort of like, oh, we have to start now. Okay. Good thing I planned some questions last night because I would have been going into it blind. But yeah, I literally just walked out the door and there was the text for Paul. It's like, we're ready. And it's like, what do you mean we're ready? And then they got the call. And it's like, no, it's like she's here now. It's like, damn, I meant 6 o'clock my time
Yeah,
to give me time.
hers. Yeah. Just she's Atlantic
I know.
time. Well, it was funny, but it went well, and I
Yes.
was able to understand, I'd say, about 90% of what you guys were talking about, but I don't feel, I can contribute to the conversation that much in French, because I struggle with the words, and I don't wanna sound like an idiot, and I don't wanna butcher the language, so I don't say a lot, but
Mhm.
that's fine. I mean, I was able to follow along, which I thought was, important.
Mhm. But normally you say a little more. Yesterday you didn't say anything actually.
Not much at all. I was really tired,
Mm.
and still not gonna lie, a little bit hungover.
Mm. Okay.
Well,
So
like I said, I
the
I rarely ever drink like that, and I don't know what got into me. That just the Guinness were going down, and if it was just Guinness, it would have been fine. But I decided to get
the
into some
whiskey.
Irish whiskey, and
Mhm.
that's what gave me the hangover. The Guinness was fine, but the whiskey gave me a hangover. And late in the afternoon, I went out and had a bite to eat and met a couple of people, and it was good. I felt much better. And then as the evening wore on last night, my stomach just got worse and worse and worse, and I was suffering from horrible heartburn. I didn't have any medication, no Alka-Seltzer, no Pepto, no nothing in the house. And you
Ooh.
know how you're at that stage? It's like, do I struggle to go to the store to get something, or do I just tough it out? And I'm like, I'm just gonna drink some water and go to bed. So that's what I did. Hey, look,
Mm.
I'm my own worst enemy. I did it to myself. Nobody to blame but me. So
Mm. As Kit Michael calls it, the wrath of St. Patrick's is upon you.
yes. Well, and here's the thing, I rarely ever drink that much, and especially on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. It just and we went out at 1 o'clock and had a pint. We had 2 pints of Guinness, and then we came back and we started the show. I had to take the dog out again, came back, started the show, and everything was good, and as the show went on, I just, well, that's good. I'll have another pint. I didn't stop to drink water. Like I was, you know, it was my own damn fault. I made the mistake. So, yeah. And I'd say lesson learned, but I've done it before.
Yeah.
Chances are I'll probably do it again.
Yeah.
But I've never,
Yeah.
I don't intentionally ever do that. I've got guys I grew up with who go, let's get drunk. I'm like, I don't think I've ever said that in my life.
Mm.
Like I've never intentionally gone and done that ever,
I
ever,
know
ever.
I've never said that.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I just want to have a
I
couple
want to
of
get
beer with
so
my
drunk
buddies.
tonight.
Yeah, that's not my
No.
thing. Never has been. Go
No.
out, have a couple of beer, you get that 3 beer glow on. It's like, that's good. We're good now. That's all I need. But I went beyond that. So anyway,
No. That's all right.
life goes on.
There's everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yes, yeah. Well, and Michael Pilon, I was the water boy for our group yesterday, making sure everyone stayed hydrated. Good on you, sir. Good on you.
Yes. Valuable community service.
Well, I should have
Especially
grabbed a
on the
couple of
day.
bottles of Prime. That would have helped.
Ooh. Yee.
Prime?
That's that sort of caffeinated drink?
No, it's not caffeinated. It's an electrolyte.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh,
it's
that.
made with coconut water. There's no sugar in it either. That's what I
Okay.
like about it. It really rehydrates you because, well, coconut water rehydrates better than anything, but it's really difficult to find coconut water these days. So I'll just buy some Prime and slam one of those back, and that really helps.
Oh, cool. Cool. Okay, I'm thinking one of those like heavy caffeinated energy drinks for
Oh,
some
no,
reason.
no.
With the brightly colored cans.
Like a
and all that.
Monster or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, kids and cubs. Big cliffhanger. There was an election in Russia,
Oh, wow, yeah.
and
Well, who won? Oh, look at that.
there were candidates. There were 3 approved opposition candidates. I don't know what they had to do or promise to actually be approved, but yeah, he. In a big surprise, nobody expected it. Total plot twist, but Vladolf Putler won. I'm thinking the surprise is that he won with slightly under 90% of the vote, 87.8.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling a couple of people are going to be particularly clumsy over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Fallout Windows, maybe.
Yeah, because or just the stairs just suddenly won't work.
That happens.
I don't know. I don't know if he's happy with 87.8. I don't know if that's enough for his fragile little ego, but there you go. Oh, well, yeah, no. Actually, I think it will be because 87.8, according to the CBC article, is the highest ever result in Russia's post-Soviet history.
Mm-hmm.
So he's more I guess his spin is, I'm more popular than ever. Thank you, Russia. You know what? They should really just stop running these as elections and running them as pageants. Like, just like put a sash on him like this, give him flowers, put a crown on him like this, and have him go, oh my God, I didn't expect it. I'm so surprised. Thank you. Because, I mean, I saw these videos on YouTube of people in the voting booths and some like armed guard just pulling the curtain, going in and looking at the ballot
sure.
and then coming out, making sure. In the territories, in the annexed territories of Ukraine, apparently they were going door to door with boxes and machine guns and saying, put your vote in here.
Yeah, I've got a video clip here of the. Let me just bring this up for you. Of the
But remember, Canada's a tyranny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, the outcome means that he's got a new 6-year term, his 5th term, and yep, that's the one. That's the video thing I saw. As you can see, those are merely for decorations.
Yeah.
They're not there to provide you any privacy at all.
Nope.
Vote
for me and I'll set you free. No.
Vote for me again.
Yeah.
I'll set you free to vote for me again. Pretty much. He says that he is planning to spend 1/3 of Russia's GDP on fighting the war in Ukraine, because that's what that war needs, more money. Even though there are sanctions, he has found a way to adapt, mostly by importing products through friendly nations. So even though Apple, for example, has sanctions since participating, well, it seems either like China or Iran are buying all the Apple stock and then sending it to Russia so that the products are still available in there. And with regard to oil and gas, well, he's selling all of it to India and other like nations. So even though it's at a bit of a discount or whatnot, he is finding alternative markets for his products and alternative ways to get products from countries that have sanctions against them inside the country. However, it's not all smooth sailing, because if you think interest rates here are bad because of inflation, in Russia, the central bank increased interest rates 16%.
Wow.
In order to deal with inflation. I think ours went from 0.5 to 5.5 or something like that, only like 5% or 5.5%. So, yeah. Could you imagine interest rates going up 16% in that short amount of time instead? I mean, that's something to be crying about. Not that this is easy, but again, if you look at us in isolation, of course, interest rates going up 5% or something in the space of X number of months, the fastest interest rate rise ever in Canadian history, is shocking. And of course, it affects the pocketbook, and of course, it creates problems and stress for people. But yeah, 16% interest rate increases in Russia, 140% inflation in Argentina.
Yeah.
And we still haven't had a quarter of loss yet. Or maybe we've had one, but not 2 consecutive quarters. So we've done it without a recession. That seemingly mythical soft landing that we always hear people talk about, which we missed in 2008 and we missed in the 80s and we missed. Apparently, it seems to have been engineered this time around, which should be getting the current government a lot of credit, but it is not, because, well, people are having trouble making ends meet, and, well, that's the real thing now. But logically, one should be looking at what has the way we've been able to get through those supply chain things and the interest rate rises and the inflation crisis without having recession as some kind of minor economic miracle. But we're not trained to be grateful. So, and when things get bad, being grateful for the fact that they're not worst is, well, I believe the term is cold comfort. So, uh, you don't go very far in the polls on cold comfort, unfortunately.
No, God, no.
Yes, I remember that Drew Carey joke. I think when he was talking about the ozone layer, he's like, I understand that the kids are going to suffer, but I'm standing on my porch with a can of Pam, going, Shh, I'm cold now. Shh. Right, so that's what people are doing, right? It's like I'm having trouble making my mortgage payment now. Maybe somebody else can make it better for me, rather than saying, this could be Argentina or this could be Russia, and then I really wouldn't be able to make my mortgage payments. But that's not the world we live in. We live in the world that our own little worlds in the countries that we live in, and our realities for us, and comparing our problems to people and other nations who don't have enough to eat. I mean, we could do that, but that doesn't make our problems any less real for us, right? So, and that's the reality that politicians deal with at the time. So he's not getting the love, but if we're being objective, it is a bit of a minor miracle that this is actually happening. And it's been showing in our employment numbers lately. Also, the federal government had announced recently 41,000 jobs had been created in the previous month, for which they were keeping the numbers. And that was a little more than expected. But because of population growth, it still wasn't enough jobs to match population growth. So the unemployment rate went up 1/10% more than over the previous month. However, it was adding 41,000 jobs, which was not, I believe, was more than double than the analysts were expecting. So the economy is performing relatively well, especially compared to our near-peer nations, and we should be pretty happy about that. Even though, of course, like we said, the rise in interest rates and the rise in inflation, the fact that food inflation is still higher than we need it to be. The Bank of Canada rate has not come down yet. We're hoping that it will a little bit in the second half of the year, but we'll see. Wage growth is starting to decrease in speed, but wages are still growing faster than inflation. So, and that seems to be a concern for the bank still yet at this point. To try and make sure that, we're still in the years of many public sector organizations and unions and that type of stuff that deal with the government in salary negotiations. I believe that there's one going on in Saskatchewan with teachers right now that's been rather acrimonious, which may be another one of the reasons for which Premier Moe was booed at the medal ceremonies at the Briar in Saskatoon. There might have been some spillover from his relationship with teachers' unions in the province that fueled that moment. Let's just say. So, but yes, it seems the world is stuck with Putin for at least 6 more years, unless he kicks the can somewhere along the way. The United States and Germany and the United Kingdom, other nations said the vote was neither free nor fair due to the imprisonment of political opponents and censorship. There's no surprise there. Communist candidate Nikolai Karatonov finished second with just under 4%, newcomer Vladislav Devankov third, and ultranationalist Leonid Slutsky fourth. Partial results suggested. That'll probably be the first and last time we ever hear those names. Unless one of them decides to become the next Navalny. And given that they were approved to be on the ballot, I'm going to suggest that there's pretty much a fat chance that that's going to happen. Putin dismissed his critics, of course.
Well, yeah, that's to be expected, right?
Right. He said he regarded Russia's election as democratic and said the Navalny-inspired protest against him had no effect on the election's outcome. Well, of course it didn't. You're the most popular ever.
Yeah.
You've never been more popular than you are now. That's why you had to have a man killed.
Well,
allegedly.
They can't win by actually playing by the rules, so they'll just make up new ones.
Yes. And then, he took advantage of his moment there to not only elevate himself, but punch down a little. So, the whole world is laughing at what is happening in the United States. This is just a disaster, not a democracy. Is it democratic to use administrative resources to attack one of the candidates for the presidency of the United States using the judiciary, among other things? Yes, because that's exactly what you need when you're Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Putin vouching for you. Of course, in the waters in which he swims, it seems that the people that are voting for him are quite fans of Putin.
Uh-huh.
They want a strong, decisive leader that will strongly and decisively lead them somewhere they don't care.
Mm-hmm. It's all just
I don't care where you're leading us. Just be strong and decisive while you're doing it. And I will open up my wallet and spend my diabetes insulin money on you. I just...
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
No.
I don't get it. But then again, here's the thing, kids. We're not supposed to get it.
No.
That's the whole point. That's why it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to use that word in that way. We're not supposed to get it. There is nothing to get. The game is rigged. That's the whole point. There's nothing to get. I mean, clearly, I'm sure if there was a fully democratic election where people didn't have to worry about, being carted off somewhere if they voted the wrong way, that these results would not be the same. I mean, there are a lot of mothers and fathers in Russia whose babies aren't coming home. And in a lot of cases, the leader of the country didn't even send for the bodies.
True.
So, yeah, I have a feeling that there's a lot of people that would have plenty of reasons not to vote for him. So, yeah, we're not supposed to get it. The man has a plan, and he is making it happen. And unfortunately, it's not a plan that has any of ours best interests at heart.
No, of course not.
Let's put it that way. So, yeah, more Putin. Yay.
Well, yeah.
We
say it with a bit of a French accent. It's not as bad. Like more poutine.
More Putin. Yay! More Putin. So as you can tell, kits and cubs, by the looks on our faces, we are extremely excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, right up there with the greatest moment of our lives.
Round of vodka for everyone, past the borscht.
Mm.
Oh, well.
What can you do?
It's not like we didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah, there was a foregone conclusion. I mean, we knew what the outcome was. I'm like, I was just waiting to find out how big of a landslide victory it was. We knew it was going to be a landslide victory.
Yep.
Because they wanted that.
Now I have Fleetwood Mac playing in my mind. Because Putin's afraid of changes.
Well, this is
That's
true.
why he's still running. In other news, there's been some interesting things happening in Canada. We didn't talk about it last week, and that's probably the week we should have talked about it. But the Conservatives, for some reason, all decided that they were rejecting Kim Campbell.
Yeah, interesting. The only female prime minister in Canadian history.
Yeah, I think it was on International Women's Day as well that this happened.
Yes, it was.
She was asked about what she thought of Pierre Poilievre, and well, again, not a shocker. It seems that she doesn't much care for him.
If memory serves, she said he's a hate monger and a liar.
And a liar, among other things, I'm sure, which then immediately prompted the Conservatives to do what they do best when somebody says that they're liars or hate mongers, which is reach out and say, how could you possibly have that impression of us? Let's sit down and talk about it. No, they didn't do that. They just decided to press the button, Operation Character Assassination, and woo, let's destroy Kim Campbell. Didn't quite go over the way they thought it would.
No, they got some pushback.
Yeah. So yeah, that didn't work out for them like at all.
Nope.
And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, um, something we had been waiting for a long time, but it seems that the RCMP finally concluded its investigation into what went on to elect the leader of the UCP um, a leader ago. When Jason Kenney was in the running and he had it all sealed up anyway, but I guess he decided that 50% was not enough for him. Shades Putin, and decided to have allegedly a kamikaze candidate enter who could destroy somebody else and then pull out, so that Jason could win by a much larger margin. And well, it seems that they have decided that there are no charges.
Funny how that worked out, eh?
Yes, so the 2017 leadership race, and this is what we say, right? When something goes on wrong with the leadership races, this was the 2017 leadership race.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2024.
Yeah, so 7 years.
The guy had time to fulfill most of his term, literally implode, get removed, have essentially a bloodless coup committed against him, and replaced with the wackadoodle we got now. And she's been there for a while now. And now we finally get it. So if anybody is expecting something to happen to Arpan Khanna or something to happen to Pierre Poilievre because of the alleged India interference in these nomination races or in these leadership races, don't hold your breath. You might turn conservative blue. Because the UCP one, which seemed rather obvious, took 7 years and there's no charges. With the India one, we have the whole international intrigue part and the fact that the foreign government is not going to be particularly cooperative. And the RCMP trying to find out whether or not they influenced a leadership race. But according to the CBC, no charges will be laid following a long and complex Alberta RCMP investigation into allegations of voter fraud and identity theft in the 2017 United Conservative Party leadership race won by Jason Kenney. RCMP announced the conclusion of their investigation at a news conference in Edmonton Friday following a closed-door technical briefing with reporters. Since 2019, the RCMP had been investigating these allegations, so 5-year investigation, and they characterized the investigation as high-profile and extremely complex. They looked into 2 allegations that then candidate Jeff Callaway entered the leadership contest solely to attack another candidate, always with the intention of pulling out and endorsing a different candidate before the vote, and that there were instances of identity fraud in the voting process. Kenney's leadership was tainted by allegations his campaign ran Callaway as a so-called kamikaze candidate to attack and undermine his main rival, former Wild Rose leader Brian Jean. Kenney was interviewed in February 2022 by the RCMP about the allegations. Callaway had dropped out of the race before the vote and endorsed Kenney. Both men have denied their campaigns colluded to undermine Jean. The investigation did not uncover evidence to establish that Callaway or any other person committed a criminal offense. Callaway posted a statement to social media saying he welcomed the RCMP's decision. Quote, "To this day, I believe in my platform to bring prosperity to Alberta, but given the impact of this cloud over my life that decimated my career, relationships, and reputation, it brings modest vindication set against the years of media hyperbole," he wrote. "I thank my supporters, friends, and family that supported me through this process. I truly wish those well that want to make Alberta a better place without ego from any party, but politics will never be in my future." Now, here's the thing that's interesting, is that the RCMP found no evidence of criminal wrongdoing. But Elections Alberta also investigated it prior to this. And Elections Alberta found reasons to levy more than $170,000 in fines related to the Callaway campaign. So I'm not sure what was done that got the electoral body say you broke the rules enough to warrant $170,000 in fine, but not enough for it to be considered a crime. If someone can explain that one to me, I would really love it. And please explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, because I think I might be a little slow in getting this one.
Yeah, I don't get it.
The 2017 UCP leadership race also faced allegations of attempted voter fraud using mail-in ballots. The allegations were that emails were created in order to receive pins and vote on people's behalf without their consent. RCMP's investigators examined the voter database used by the UCP and identified a list of, quote, suspicious votes. So the RCMP's investigation did identify a list of suspicious votes, but police said the number of potential votes at issue, which after the investigation was less than 200, was not enough to sway the results of the leadership race. And it seems that at least the implication or the inference on the word on the street was the fact that it wasn't enough to influence the investigation is what led the RCMP to not lay the charges. I cannot verify if that's true or not, but if it is, again, it prompts another question, which is, isn't it Elections Alberta's job to determine whether or not the number of votes was enough to influence the result? And isn't it the RCMP Alberta's job to make sure that regardless of its ability to impact the result, if somebody broke the law and trying to influence the result, that's enough and there should be charges? When I'm having an investigation into a vote, I'm not asking the police force to determine whether or not enough votes were cast to influence the result. That's my electoral body's job. That's sort of like saying, well, there was an attempt to rob the bank, but they only got away with $120 and they can't do much with that. So
we'll just look the other way.
No. It's the attempt. Whether you make out with assent or not,
it's neither here nor there.
You attempted to rob the bank.
Yeah,
that's the crime. How successful you were in committing the crime is irrelevant. Attempted murder. Well, Your Honor, I didn't manage to kill him.
No crime committed. No. You assaulted him, but he didn't die. But, no crime. That sounds like a Trump defense almost, huh?
Well, I mean, yeah, we did have people, there were suspicious votes, but, I mean, wasn't enough to actually make someone lose. Why are y'all so touchy? It's just, I don't get, why? So the investigation also did not find evidence that any leadership candidate encouraged their volunteers to engage in identity fraud, the RCMP said. So maybe that has more to do with it than the actual result. In a statement post, let's hope that that's what it was. In a statement post just posted to social media on Friday, Kenney said that he was pleased that the investigation found that what he had said all along, that neither he nor his campaign did anything wrong. He said he directed the party and his former leadership team to cooperate with the RCMP investigation. He said the, quote, baseless allegations were made by two people he had prevented from running as UCP candidates in the 2019 provincial election. Quote, today's outcome is a total vindication of my 2017 leadership campaign and the UCP's administration of that election. Yes. Yeah, of course.
No, it wasn't.
Total vindication. Because, yeah, there were still suspicious votes, but total vindication. Brian Jean said, the victim in this matter was our party. No, I think it was you. But you're still here and Kenny's gone, so I guess you could afford to be magnanimous.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
It's like, I know what you're doing, Brian. We see what you're doing with that other hand that you can't talk to us on speakerphone. You're hoping that Danny steps in it, and that when she gets close to the edge, you could just give her that extra push. You want to be where she is. We see the green in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The victim in this matter was our party, which was put together by so many people of goodwill who sacrificed lots to bring together two parties and two organizations into one, Jean wrote, adding that the UCP tightened up the rules for the 2022 leadership race won by Premier Danielle Smith. Integrity and political processes matter, which is why I'm proud of how our party ran the last leadership race. During the course of the investigation, police conducted interviews with more than 1,200 people who examined their UCP membership and registrations forms. While RCMP determined, quote, that there suspected instances of potential identity fraud, there was insufficient evidence to charge any suspect, and there was no evidence that any leadership candidate orchestrated these relatively rare instances, RCMP said in Friday's news release. That boggles my mind again. Fewer than 200, is it normal to have? I'm going to say when they say fewer than 200, I'm going to guess that's between 175 and 200, or at least between 150 and 200.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure. Is it normal to have that number of votes?
I don't know.
That are suspicious in a leadership election? Again, we don't keep data on that type of stuff. Because party leadership races are run by private corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Private organizations, which parties are, not election boards. So, when you look at your elections, you can go back over time and look at the database and compare turnout over time, or number of spoiled ballots, or that type of stuff, or unaccepted ballots year over year. But with party leadership races, right? I mean, the one in which I think it was that elected Scheer, they decided to destroy all the ballots minutes after they counted them.
Yeah, funny how that worked out.
Yeah. So it's there's no data out there, so I don't know. I can't tell you on what basis they said that was extremely rare, because there's no database of that to compare to. To me, that doesn't sound like rare. That sounds like a lot.
One would think.
Yeah. Nothing in the investigation suggested the UCP failed to take reasonable steps to manage their internal process, RCMP Superintendent Rick Janet said during Friday's news conference. Quote, this wasn't a widespread situation. There was no hacking like technological hacking. There was no use of foreign interference. This was a situation where it appears that it is possible that in some cases somebody obtained personal information that allowed them to register and receive a PIN to vote and then cast that vote. And those cases, if they could be proven in court, would still be very, very small percentage of the overall vote. Janet said the years-long investigation was thorough. It's unlikely the investigation will be reopened. RCMP said the case involved more than 65 investigators, 1,200 interviews with voters, 560 other interviews, 12 out-of-province trips by 22 investigators, and 460,877 cents paid in overtime and travel expenses. All for nobody's ultimately accountable or responsible. But yes, PNC Bio, exactly, a 140,000 K fine of vindication.
Certainly seems that way.
I don't know. I'm going to go back and look, trying to see. No, I can't find the article. I'll look for it during the show at one point when Mr. Grizzly's talking to see if we can find out a little, go back in time to look at when that $140,000 fine was charged and figure out exactly what Election Alberta said in that case. Do you have anything today, Mr. Grizzly?
Well, I got a quick little hit here. Just a second. Kind of clear my throat. Noticing that there's a lot of people online that were, and I'm trying to avoid talking about Pierre Poilievre, but this one was, I guess he had a rally in Halifax. And he's like, the Great Canadian Tax Revolt continues with the support of 2,000 people in Halifax, including an overflow room on Sunday afternoon. Notes suggesting context to be shown with the Post. The Marriott Harbourfront Hotel Nova Scotia Ballroom has a capacity of 800 people. Even with overflow, the Marriott can only accommodate 1,000 guests total in its event spaces. So, once again, they're lying about size.
Much like someone we know. Someone who tends to be a little orange south of us.
Yeah. Lying about crowd size once again. I think that's I would notice like hundreds of people were saying this. People were mad. I mean, I'm like, I personally don't care. I really don't give a damn. But people were mad. People are just fed up with the lies, is what it is. And the populace is pushing back. So I thought that was interesting. The amount of people that were fact checking him on blatant lies. It's just crazy. And now there's a couple of people that are losing their minds over the fact that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be speaking at the state funeral for former late Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. They're like, I can't believe the Mulroney family's letting him do that. It's like, well, they've known each other their whole lives. Like, he's known the family his whole life. They were friends. Brian Mulroney came out and supported the Prime Minister, and it's a Prime Minister speaking at the funeral of a former Prime Minister. This is not out of the ordinary.
No, not at all. Not at all. And, I mean, okay, number one, people who are doing this, how selfish and arrogant that you think that you have the right to opinions or feelings about who a family, of which you are not a member, invites to the funeral of a family member and invites to speak. Number one, get a life. Grow up.
Life, damn it.
Like, you don't get a say. You don't need to have an opinion on this. It's none of your feckin' business. It just isn't. Spend your time doing something better. Number two, it's not as if the Prime Minister of this nation wasn't able to look beyond party lines.
Yeah.
It's not like the Prime Minister of this nation, when he was negotiating NAFTA 2 with Trumpito Cittadini, south of us, didn't pick up the phone and called on Prime Minister Brian Mulroney in his capacity as, one, an elder statesman, and two, as someone who actually negotiated the original free trade agreement with the United States, to call upon his expertise and serve his nation one more time.
Yeah, that happened, remember?
Is it any surprise, really? Really?
Well, and I've got an article here about talking about the late Brian Mulroney. He says, Brian Mulroney got the issue of climate change long before others did, and he was one of only two heads of state to attend the first World Conference on the Changing Atmosphere held in Toronto in June 1988. Conference brought together more than 300 scientists and policymakers from over 40 countries. The conference was later dubbed the Woodstock of Climatology. It was hosted by Canada, was Mulroney's doing. It reflected his environmentalism and confirmed his belief in Canada as a middle power and helpful fixer on the global stage. A year earlier, in 1987, the world had convened in Montreal to finalize the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. 1 week earlier, during an early heat wave, the G7 met in Toronto, and as host, Mulroney ensured that its final communique included a strong statement on the environment and a clear reference to climate change. I was pleased, he would later write in his memoirs. So, this is a guy who was the most environmentally friendly prime minister we'd ever had up to that point in time, and he helped change policy so that in the future we could have a better world.
Yeah, indeed. So I believe the state funeral is scheduled for the 23rd?
Yes, Sunday the 23rd.
Yeah. So, yep, some people are upset. Again, it's like, why is the Prime Minister? And again, let us not forget that at this particular moment, the Prime Minister of Canada is also the Dean of the G7. He's the leader that's been in power the longest. So, for example, sometimes at these types of funerals, they'll have someone from the international political scene, maybe a president or a secretary of state from the United States or somewhere else come in. Or exactly, like, for example, if the leader of France had been the dean of the G7 at this time and had worked with that person throughout their entire career. Right? Someone who's retired from that era, or even the leader of the G7 currently coming to speak on behalf of their nation's history with that prime minister. Well, in this case, if that were to be the case, it would also be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because he's the elder statesman of the group.
Elaine's
So
correct. The 23rd is Saturday, not Sunday.
Yes.
Sunday's the 24th. And Sunday is the day of the state funeral.
Yeah. So, why is everybody giving him a platform that can make him look good? Because, and on that day, a lot of people are going to be watching that. And he's going to get a lot of profile, and then he's going to speak, and probably during the clips that night, there'll be a little segment of him, 10 to 15 seconds, saying something, and that's going to go all over. And of course, he's going to be looking like a statesman when he does that, because at a state funeral for a prime minister from the other side of the political spectrum, and you're appearing to be someone, you are someone who is saying kind things about them. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to look bad while you're doing that. And since we're not allowed, it is completely verboten for the prime minister to have one moment of positive press without all of us losing our fucking minds.
Pretty good German accent, actually.
Thank you so much. I don't, it's political performance art here.
That's all it is.
Why aren't they paying attention to me?
Here's a really good statement from Christian. I am a fighter and former soldier. I go to funerals of complete strangers who share my profession. People need to stop and think before they decide they know something.
There you go.
I mean,
that's the perfect example.
Exactly.
We say that often, right? Police officers or fire officers, their lives are lost in the line of duty, and departments and divisions from all across the country send someone.
That's right. They never met, but they're brothers in arms, right? So this is a former prime minister who's going to deliver an address, a eulogy. Well, maybe he won't be delivering the eulogy. I don't know, but he will be speaking, of course, at the funeral. And they were friends, and they were friendly, and they supported one another. And this was not a political thing. This was, and this is something that's important to remember, that a lot of people have seemed to have neglected to pay attention to. Brian Mulroney was supporting the prime minister because he was supporting the country. He was supporting Canada.
Yes.
That's what it was.
He put the country first.
It was not
statesmanship.
Party lines. Exactly. It was not party lines. It was not my party good, your party bad. It wasn't that at all. It was like, let's put the country first. And that's what he was doing.
If I were Mulroney, I really hope he did this, but somewhere in his inheritance left a little bit of money for the Trudeau Foundation.
Oh, he probably did. He was a proponent of higher education.
I know that, but wouldn't that be...
Well, that would really burn them, wouldn't it?
They were ski buddies too.
Justin Trudeau's ski buddy. They went skiing once when he was 12.
See, kids, I'm petty in that way. That's something I would have done. It's like, oh yeah, they're doing all of this stuff. Well, I'm about to kick the bucket. Call my lawyer. Let's give a $20,000 donation to the Trudeau Foundation. Let's make them real mad. I don't care. I don't care what they say about me. I just want them to keep talking about me after I go. I think about these things, kids. Oh man. Yeah. So losing their minds. The next thing that's going to make people lose their minds, unfortunately, this one, is that the NDP, I can't tell if this is a stirring the pot move or if this is an earnest move, because we know that the NDP does believe in this issue. But they are presenting a motion in Parliament that calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, as well as the release of all the hostages, the suspension of all trade in military goods and technology with Israel, and the reinstatement of long-term continued funding for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA. Now it seems that the funding for UNRWA is going to be reestablished. We mentioned that about $25 million, I believe, that we give annually to through them. I'm not sure how a motion that is not legally binding in Canada to call for the immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all hostages actually makes that happen. The suspension of all trade in military goods and technology with Israel, I'm guessing sort of borderline makes it, because I believe a motion is not supposed to have any financial measures, and if we cease trade, that does affect the finance, but it's not necessarily it's not like a new tax or new levy or fee, so maybe it sort of qualifies in that sense. The NDP knows that there are tensions within the Liberal ranks with regards to what the government's position is, because it's a bigger tent party, and there are people that are more pro-Israel in it, and there are people that are more pro-Palestine in it, and there are people who would want the government to take a firmer stance on one side rather than the other, and there are some people that would rather that the government really straddle the middle on this one. And the issue comes up, and it's an issue that does inflame passions, as we have seen on our streets. So it would no surprise that it would inflame passions, and it has in our press as well. So there's no reason it would not inflame passions, in the caucus meeting room as well. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to see what the intent of this motion is. Now, for me personally, I see motions like this as a utter and complete total waste of time. When we're talking about virtue signaling, this is it, because there's not actually anything that we can do as Canada to provoke an immediate ceasefire. We can sort of ask for it, but it's not like we haven't been asking for it.
We've been asking for it for a long time,
and it's not like we haven't. Yeah, it's not like we haven't been asking for releasing of all the hostages, like pretty much since day one. It's not like our statements
in Ottawa. By the way, there's a daily protest.
Oh yeah.
I see it every day. Walking home from work, there's always a protest. And I'm like, look, it's peaceful. It's a march up the street to the hill. It might be an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most. And, it's organized. They have a planned route. The police are there as an escort. I'm like, okay, I get it. But I don't know how you're affecting any change. I don't know what you expect us to do as a nation. Call for an immediate ceasefire. We've done that. Call for release of the hostages. We've done that.
And every time we intervene in some type of way, when we're talking about a path forward, right? Path forward, it's like, yes, even though we need to talk to Hamas about releasing the hostages, the path forward for Israel and for Palestine does not at all include Hamas. And nothing happens until the hostages are released. I mean, it's almost like standard boilerplate at this point.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Right. So I'm not sure what this accomplishes more in a real sense. I know for Canadians who are affected by this, yes, they want to see somebody doing something, anything, standing up. The virtue signaling does matter. So people standing up and being counted and showing that they support and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know what it changes on the ground for the people that are affected there in any concrete matter. I do know that it throws something into the House of Commons, given that there are already tensions within the Liberal ranks that can exacerbate it, because every time you have to talk about the subject, well, then the passions return. On the Conservative side, I don't see much chance of the Conservatives supporting this motion, because the Conservatives have really fully gone all in on being pro-Israel, and then every now and then they'll do something performative for Muslim Canadians, because they're hoping that there are enough of them that are I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say stupid. I don't want to say silly. I don't want to say not respecting, having lacking self-respect. But whatever the word it is, to still vote Conservative, even though they've shown them time and time again that they'd be willing to throw them under a bus at a moment's notice for convenience and expediency. So, I mean, since 9/11. I personally don't see how any Muslim in Canada could vote Conservative.
I don't understand why they would. You're voting against your own best interest.
Well, you're voting against a party that literally despises you, and keeps on feeding into the violent Muslim stereotype, because the only time they seem to be your friends is when they need violence committed against another group that they also don't like gay people or trans people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there are still some who are voting conservative, and I guess so every now and then, just like he does with Ukraine, every now and then he'll go into the Ukrainian committee and says, "We will always stand with you, even though we don't vote for anything that you actually would need that would help you, but we will stand for you."
Yeah.
And I guess for some people that's enough, and they're not looking for consistency of behavior over time. This motion was initially set to be debated on February 29th, but it has been delayed. It's set to come before the House of Commons today. And the NDP source says that any changes to the motion would have to be made through an amendment to the original motion, which is sponsored by the NDP leader, through the party's foreign affairs critic, Heather McPherson, acting as the point person. So given that this motion is sponsored by Jagmeet Singh specifically, this clearly is a strategic decision in some way. And I don't want kids to be, regardless of where you sit on this issue, to be upset by the fact that I'm pointing out that this is a strategic decision, that I'm not looking at this as a pure altruistic, we just really care and we want to do the right thing and be do-gooders.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is positioning and strategy and politics. Everything. So even the stuff that you genuinely mean from your heart,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's still media lines prepared for them. There's still an event of some kind or an activity. They're often chosen to be announced on a day that might be relevant or at a time. Something. So there's always some strategy and some positioning going on, no matter what. That's politics. That's the game. It's how you play it. So, but on this one specifically here, because it inflames so many passions, when you want to infer or outright suggest or even just outright explicitly say, which is what I'm doing in this instance. I'm not inferring or just suggesting. I'm outright saying it. This is a positioning thing. Because of the amount of benefit it can do on the ground. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But we need to be eyes wide open about what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair point.
You can make a good decision, I guess, and still decide to market it or be strategic about how you put it in a manner that advantages you as well. There's no reason a good decision can't accomplish two things.
Wow.
So we're keeping our eyes focused on the second thing seeking to be accomplished by this decision, not the first one. So, but yes, we're going to have some tensions. There's going to be there'll probably be one or two people from the Liberal caucus this time that will be coming to a mic at some point and, saying, I can't believe my party's doing this and I'm not for it and whatnot. And then Conservatives and NDP will try to run with that. And, but okay, that's the game. So don't hate the game, hate the players.
Very true.
In this case, sometimes you got to hate the players. The Tories, the Conservatives, on their end, are calling for an emergency debate in the House of Commons on the Trudeau government's scheduled increase of the federal carbon tax. They've got 7 premiers behind them. The Prime Minister, as we mentioned on the previous show, came out and called some of them some short-term thinkers here. And this also is a positioning exercise for the Conservatives. We know that they claim that they believe this. I don't know how much they truly do believe it or whether or not they're exploiting it cynically. Both can be true in this case as well. But the Conservative leader has written to House Speaker Greg Fergus requesting the debate, pointing to public opposition, with quote in his letter to Mr. Fergus, 70% of people oppose Justin Trudeau's plan to hike the tax. 70% of provincial premiers, including the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, including the Liberal Premier, we have to highlight him specifically, have joined the common sense Conservative movement in demanding Trudeau spike the hike, he wrote in a letter sent on Sunday. Conservatives are set to use their 2 allocated opposition days this week to push votes in the House on the tax ahead of an April increase. Again, I think it's a waste of time because the federal government is not going to back down on this whatsoever. And once again, I keep on looking to the premiers and thinking, y'all have budgets. Many of you, like in New Brunswick, for example, and in Alberta, for example, have declared surpluses. So it's not like you have the money. If you're sitting there going, like us, the citizens of our provinces can't afford to make rent and make ends meet. Well, you happen to have a surplus and the federal government doesn't. So why don't you make a decision and help them with that?
Mhm.
You also have the power to legislate. You have the power to decide that you are going to do the bare minimum to make sure that the carbon federal backstop does not apply in your province so people don't have to pay it. But you won't do it. So if you have the means to legislate and you have the money to help people help tide people over or help them make both ends meet, and you choose not to use that money for that purpose, and you choose not to use your power of legislating, and then you just turn around and say, Justin, do something. I don't have much respect for you.
No. Well, I keep thinking about the slogans they just keep coming up with. Spike the hike. Spike the hike.
Do not spike the tyke.
Spike the hike. Axe the tax. Build the homes. Stop the crime. What the? What, 4-year-olds coming up with this?
Don't forget suppress the press.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Well, they don't say that one out loud. But the stop the crime one is the one that makes me laugh. You're right, because no prime minister ever in history ever wanted to do that. This is a brand new thing. We never had crime until Justin Trudeau. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There was no crime in Canada.
Revelations.
Except for, Robert Pickton and Robert Paul Bernardo. And, right. Yeah, no. Right. Right. Maybe crime's been going on for a long time. Did I
Dean
miss?
Delmastro.
Dean
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Oopsie.
Oops. Not in the same category as Picton, of course. But sorry, yes. That just did my bitchiness just slip out? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's just I'm a bad beaver. Oh, Mr. Gal suppresses 2 syllables, won't catch on. Oh, ouch. Well, and exactly, Christian, spike means increase. That's the weird thing, right? When you say spike the hike, like they say, well, they had to explain it, right? No, it's like you're driving a spike through it like it was a vampire or whatnot. It's like, when you tell me spike the hike, I want you to make the hike even hikier. Spike the hike. Make it higher.
Yeah. I know. It just, they're not even, if it rhymes, it should be good. But it's,
oh, man.
It's not a good
prick. I mean, sorry. So when we're talking about people taking things or playing with words, so here, spike the hike, they mean putting a spike through it. Well, it seems that the Prime Minister had a moment in French.
Yes, and it was very much misunderstood. Thank you for getting to that. I completely forgot about it.
Yes.
But yeah, it was very much misunderstood.
The Prime Minister was on a television show, I believe, and gave a 24-minute interview with regard to his job. And, people are asking him a lot. It's like, why are you staying in this? Everyone wants you to go. And his standard answer, seems to be, at a time like this when, all these types of things are going on, foreign interference and this pressure and, global war and all that kind of stuff. I can't imagine myself not seeing this through. This is part of my personality and, this, but, it's like, well, yeah, but everybody wants you to go and you've been at it for a while. Haven't you thought of leaving? And then he said in French, Mais je sens acquitté à tous les jours. C'est une job de fou que je suis en train de faire, des sacrifices au niveau personnel. Si je ne doutais pas quasiment tous les jours de ce que je fais, je ne serais pas humain. Now, when you're translating, there are the words.
Yes.
Yes. And then there's the culture and the context in which the words are said. And a lot of people have been running with the fact like this, just going to translate the words, but disassociate them from a context, especially the cultural context in which they're said. And I'm going to run with this interpretation. So, mais je songe à quitter tous les jours is, yes, songe can be dream, but songe is like, I wonder or I think about it or it crosses my mind in that sense. So she's basically saying, je songe à quitter tous les jours, which could mean I dream of leaving this job every day, or it crosses my mind. The thought of leaving this job or quitting the job crosses my mind daily. There's the difference between it crosses my mind like this. Who hasn't been at a job? Yes, at one point, like for example, where things get particularly frustrating, you sit there and it's like, I do not know how much more of this I can do, or it's like, or why the hell am I even doing this?
It's only human. It's only human. I love my job, but there's days when I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. You
This
get in,
needs
you
to
get
be
started,
over.
everything goes sideways at the beginning. It's like, I've had it. But you can't do that, right? You have your responsibilities and you got to earn a living. So you just keep plugging through. We all have those days. How would a prime minister be expected to be any damn different? I mean, come on. I think they have a little bit more stress in their job than I have in mine.
Exactly. C'est une job de fou que je suis en train de faire. It's basically, it's, I don't want to say that it's lunacy, but it's like this is a crazy job. This is a crazy making job. Like only a fool would take this job in a way. Ooh, le Pepto.
Yeah, and upset stomach.
Sink the pink. There you go.
Yeah, that
Chug,
has a
chug,
different
chug,
meaning in my
chug,
world.
chug, 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 chug. Oh,
Well,
naughty,
that's
naughty grizzly.
That was a line from an Aerosmith song.
Yes. So there's a lot of people you ask like this, would you run for office? And go, hell no, I'd have to be crazy to take that job. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a crazy job that I'm doing. Les sacrifices au niveau personnel, the sacrifices at a personal level that it requires. If I did not doubt almost every day of what I was doing, I would not be human.
Yeah. It's only human.
I mean, he goes on and says other stuff in it, but this is stuff that we've already heard. Les démocraties sont tellement sous attaque à travers le monde avec du populisme extrême, avec des attaques internationales. D'être là pour ce combat, c'est pour ça que je suis entré en politique. Pas pour être populaire, pas pour des raisons personnelles, parce que je veux servir et je sais que j'ai quelque chose à offrir. So basically, democracies are very much under attack across the world with extreme populism and even with attacks coming from international sources. So talking about international interference, India and all that kind of stuff there. To be there for this battle, that's the reason for which I've entered politics, not to be popular, not for personal reasons, but because I want to serve and I know that I have something to offer. Est-ce qu'on est un pays qui va choisir de reculer dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques, de reculer dans les droits des femmes, des communautés LGBT? Est-ce qu'on va être un pays qui va moins investir dans la croissance verte? Car c'est tout ça que proposent les conservateurs. Are we going to be a country that's going to choose to go backwards in the fight against climate change, to go backwards on women's rights, on rights of the LGBTQ community? Are we going to be a country that's going to invest less in green growth? Because that's all the things that the conservatives are proposing. When he was asked about carbon tax, he said, oui, je vais maintenir cette hausse pour la très bonne raison que les 3 cents par litre d'essence que ça coûte de plus, on le rembourse à 8 familles sur 10 dans les régions où on a ce programme. So yes, I'm going to maintain this price increase for the very good reason that the 3 cents per liter of gas that it costs more, we reimburse it to 8 to 10 families in the regions where this program applies. So he's definitely going to do that. Now, one of the things that he said involved the word plate. C'est plate, ça. Asking, c'est plate. Plate can mean many things, and that's the crux here. Plate can be boring. Now, plate is the proper word in French would be ennuyant.
Mm-hmm.
Plate is more of a slang.
I was going to say
Local Quebec slang.
Very Quebecois.
Yes. Now, if you're being really pedantic, plate also is the feminine in conjugation of plat, which means flat.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have taken it and said, "Oh, the prime minister said that he finds the job flat." But no, they said the prime minister finds the job boring. And while I can see how having a job where when you're doing it, there's a whole group of people that are literally paid and exist only for the sole purpose of making sure that you can't do your job well, who will say absolutely anything about you and anything about what it is that you're trying to do daily. I can see how that would get boring after a while.
Well,
I can see how that, right?
Your life is under a microscope while you're in that position, right? No matter what you say, no matter what you do, you're going to piss somebody off every single day, no matter what. You could be the greatest human being on earth, and somebody somewhere is going to find fault with you. So you need thick skin for the position, number one. And number two, you need stamina. And number three, you need to be ready to take a beating. And you know how Polyev keeps going on, how he wants to be prime minister, which is, again, not a position you run for in this country. He doesn't have the stamina, the skin, or the intestinal fortitude to do the job. If he gets elected prime minister, whenever the next election is called, if he's still in the position of official opposition leader, or the LOL, as I like to say, loyal opposition leader, if he's still in that position, and if the Conservatives win a minority and he gets in as prime minister, because he's the leader of the party, he can assume the position, we're going to have a hell of a time. You think things were bad under Harper? You have no idea what's in store for you. This man will make us look like a laughing stock on the world stage, because nobody takes him seriously. I mean, you saw when he met Joe Biden, how Joe Biden's reaction to him was. And of course, he would just bend over backwards for Vladimir Putin. He'd stop funding Ukraine in a heartbeat, but he'll flip-flop on Ukraine whenever the wind blows a different direction, depending upon the day. The man doesn't have a spine. I don't know how he can walk around. It just, he would not be able to last in that job because he doesn't have the strength to do it.
Yep, I concur there. So when you're saying, even if you took the current flat, like for example, what's the mood there? The mood here is flat, right? Could be boring. Boring in this sense means tedious.
Yes.
Right? This job is tedious. There's, sometimes it's just tiresome. Sometimes it's, having to, when you have a task to do, and there's always somebody throwing an obstacle in your way and somebody trying to prevent you from doing that task or prevent you from doing it well. All the extra work that you have to do to get that task accomplished, it becomes tedious. I'm going to make an announcement today, and I already know that I'm going to have like X number percentage of the House, calling me a tyrant and saying that this thing is awful and that I'm trying to get their kids hooked on fentanyl or something. And I'm going to have to go to the press and explain that. And then one of my ministers is going to go out and say something. And as he mentioned in his talk with his friend at the end of the year, it's like I'm giving my ministers leeway, but sometimes they don't get the message right, and I listen to it and say, "Ooh, I'm gonna have to go and clean that one up."
Yeah, he had that interview with Terry DeMonte.
Yes,
it's more of a chat than an interview, really.
Yeah,
the one he did with Ryan Jesperson, that was a full-on interview.
Yeah,
that was not a chat. That was a full-on interview with hard-pressing questions, and I love how Jesperson said, staff just said, this is how much time you have. They didn't ask for any questions in advance. They didn't do anything of that nature, which I thought, okay, well, this is what you want in a leader. Ask me what you're going to ask me, and I will give you an answer, period. Not I need to vet the questions. No. We don't do that. That's not democracy.
No.
That's not how
No.
democracy works.
Nope, not at all. So yeah. So apparently they took the word, they dissociated from the cultural context, they dissociated from the context of the conversation, and then even though, despite the number of times they've been told now what that word plat in this context and this phrasing means, they don't care. They're sticking with the original version and they're running with it like Ben Johnson on steroids.
Yeah.
So this is a case of knowing the words and not knowing the culture.
Well, the common vernacular for Quebecois, right? So
yeah, it's like there's another word, écœurant, which is disgusting, like really disgusting, like revulsive, like to the point of making you want to like throw up.
Okay.
Écœurant. And you go, oh mon Dieu, t'es un écœurant. It's like you are one of these gross people. When somebody really disgusts you, you are disgusting. Or he says, c'est écœurant. It's like, I can't believe they made this horrible decision. It's écœurant. It's enough to make me throw up. But écœurant also in slang means it's great. When I was a teenager, everything was écœurant. Oh, listen to this tune. C'est écœurant.
Yeah, so the double meaning, like, that is sick, dude.
That is sick. Literally, it was that is sick. Pretty much. It's like, oh, well, if it's sick, why would I want to listen? No, it's not going to make you sick. Or it's like, listen to this, it'll make you sick.
No.
Right. Well, I don't want to throw up. No, not sick that way.
Not that way.
Right.
Somebody's like, I remember years ago, we saw this car in the market, and it was a Friday night early in the evening. And, the car shows will gather around in the Byward Market in the summertime. And we just walked up to this car that had this wicked paint job. And this guy just walks up to the car and he looks at the owner and he goes, dude, that paint job is dirty. And I'm like, I understood what he meant. I do. The owner of the car understood what he meant, but I'd never heard it used in that context before. This is about 25 years ago. That is dirty. I'm like, okay, all right. When you're using a term that normally means one thing to mean another, it happens in multiple languages. I think more so in English than anything else, but
Yeah. Well, or like thirsty. It was like, oh, don't be thirsty. It was like, oh, he's so thirsty. And it's like somebody brings him a glass of water. No. Not thirsty for water. But thank you.
I appreciate the hydration, but that's not what we were going for.
Oh man. So I had a chance to go look at these things a little bit, and when we're talking about some of the elections Alberta fines against that were levied for stuff that was going on. Former United Conservative Party leadership hopeful Jeff Callaway has been fined $70,000 for irregular campaign contributions during the race. The fines include a $15,000 penalty for colluding with Calgary businessman Robin Lohr in order to circumvent a contribution limit. So this Jeff Callaway was a shining example of democracy. So it's not that and here's the thing, right? It's like, well, there was no collusion to affect the results, but it was found by Elections Alberta that there was collusion to circumvent a contribution limit. I was colluding, just not on that.
Just wasn't that. There was collusion, yes, there was, just not on that thing there.
They also included soliciting or accepting a $60,000 contribution the contestant knew or ought to have known was from a prohibited person or entity. The money allegedly was funneled into the campaign through a corporation controlled by Lore. That money was then allegedly used to make contributions in other people's names. The majority of fines parceled out in $2,000 chunks are for furnishing money to others for the purpose of making a donation to the campaign and for then accepting that money as a contribution. Randy Keir, Callaway's former campaign manager, was also fined $10,000 for donating money that was not his own. Ah, yes. Callaway wasn't the only one with fines revealed by the commissioner. Jennifer Thompson, who was part of an attempt to halt the commissioner's investigation during the recent Alberta election, was fined $5,850 for donating money furnished through Lore's corporation, Energize Alberta. Darren Thompson, also part of the injection attempt, was fined $5,250 for donating money that was not his own. Now, when one person donates money that is not their own to your campaign, that's a bad thing that happens that you can handle it. When two people do that, it's kind of a coincidence. If there are more than three, what are the odds it's a conspiracy?
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that too many coincidences are not coincidences. But maybe that's just my cynical beaver heart.
I got a tweet I want to put on the screen for you here. It has to do with Alberta. And anyway, I'll put this on the screen and then we'll read it in a sec here. Barney Parnowski's best intention. My name's not Gordy. The oil and gas sector tops the profitable list by far with a $38 billion increase in profits, or more than 1,000% since 2019. Other highly profitable sectors include mining, banking, grocery stores, and food manufacturing. Spike the hike. Which boils down to this. They're trying to blame the carbon regulatory recovery fee, which is going up 3 cents on the cost of everything, except we're getting gouged by billionaire corporations because they can do it, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. They just keep marking up the price because they feel like it. And here's the thing. If we look at the productivity rate and the cost of living versus incomes, they've not kept on pace with one another. Productivity has far outstripped income in relationship to it. The cost of food, the cost of rental, housing, the cost of everything has gone up and not in relationship to your income. So we're getting screwed over here, folks, but it's not by the Prime Minister of Canada, by profiteering corporations, which is why we need unions now more than ever. And I'm serious when I say that. We need them now more than ever because this late stage of capitalism is really, really taking a strip out of people. You okay there?
Yep. Just
okay.
A double sneeze. Oh my. Sorry. Oh, that one rattled my brain a little bit.
I know what that's like. That's never fun. It's never fun when that happens.
Oh boy. Yeah. So, kids and cubs. Conservatives are having an interesting time with lying about their crowd sizes and having former leaders of the Progressive Conservative Party calling out the current leader as being a liar and hate monger. I believe that her actual quote there was, and
I heard the interview.
The brevity of it is amazing. I think he's a liar and a hate monger is what I think he is. So that about sums it up. It's like, oh, cold-blooded. Tell us what you really feel, Kim. They're not having particularly good weeks of lately. Now, it's not showing up in the polling, but they're not having particularly good weeks. And Jason Pugh, who writes for the Crier Media Network, had a brilliant piece on this that I'm going to include for Mr. Grizzly to put up in the chat here for the kids. but it's called, if you're listening at home and want to look it up, watch. Pierre Poilievre has a rough week even as Canadian media ignores India's meddling in CPC leadership race until now. And it was written on March 15th. And I'm going to read this in. Wow, it's been a rough week for the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition. Last Friday, the Fifth Estate aired its episode about India murdering a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil and meddling in the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race. You can read about that here. There's a link to it. And after which, as we reported on the show, the Indian government showed that they felt really, really good about that by making sure that YouTube and Twitter banned access to it from anyone in their country. Of course, there's an election coming up in June.
Well,
Just want to say. Now, of course, the polls say that Modi's probably going to win that one, but still, there's an election coming in June, so we can't have any bad press. Yesterday, Yaro Geisbrek posted this video in which Poilievre says he'll make cuts to all foreign aid, which would include Ukraine. And there's a video with him, I think, giving an interview to something, a radio station called Red FM, I believe, or EFM, to a man, a host who is wearing a turban. So I do not know if he was there to pitch something immigration or whatnot, or was just going to small community-based ethnic radio and media, because that was a thing that Harper did as well to get around mainstream press, going to smaller groups that did not have the capacity to fact check in those bureaus to be able to get the message. Some of the smaller organizations, if you get a press release, they'll just print the press release because they don't have the resources to be able to go out and do the investigation or to provide context around it. So conservatives are all about getting their message at point B with as a minimal alteration as possible with which they created it at point A. So they often abuse of diversity or radio stations and media that appeal or that are created specifically for ethnic or linguistic minorities in Canada in order to help get their message out. It's a tried and true play of the party. That video is from last Saturday, the day after the Fifth Estate exposed Poilievre as the fraudulent leader of the official opposition party. But wow, having to go on the record stating that he'll put funding for Ukraine the day after that report. Having to go on the record stating that he'll pull funding for Ukraine the day after that report aired. That's rough for PP. And PP sure as hell looked pretty rough. And
I'll put the picture up. He does look rough here.
Yep.
I'm like, geez, he didn't sleep the night before? Okay,
have you got it? Because I got it up here if you need it.
Yeah, it's right here.
And that's if you remember, the last time I saw him looking like this was the synagogue presser, where he came back looking disheveled, and he was between the statements. He basically, we have an expression in French, il dormit accroché sur la corde à linge. Looks like he was put out on the clothesline to sleep it off, and came back. But this is showing up at places looking like this is one of the reasons I keep on wondering if he has a drinking problem, coupled with the with the rage incidents.
Could very well be.
I can't say that he does. I have no confirmation whatsoever.
Could very well be.
But you can't wake up this many mornings showing up at places, interviews, looking this haggard.
Look, I get the job is stressful and you work a lot, but the prime minister who's older than him by 10 years? Is he 10 years older than him?
Yeah.
Who has a very stressful job, doesn't look nearly as haggard. So I'm wondering if there is a substance abuse problem. And if there is, I hope he gets the help he needs. And I sincerely mean that. I mean, I hate the man, but I don't wish anything ill on anyone, including him.
Yeah.
Because alcoholism is terrible. If that's the case, maybe it isn't. We don't know. Could be anything else. Maybe he's just not well. We don't know. But he's looked really haggard and tired for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm. So the prime minister has 8 years on Poilievre.
There you go.
And it seems as though Canadian media has completely forgotten about the story after last Friday's episode of The Fifth Estate aired. A
Yeah.
lot of story about PP seemed to disappear from Canadian media. Things like Pierre Poilievre paying for the fake whistleblower's legal fees. You remember the one that took out his rival in the CBC leadership race, Patrick Brown, who we found out through the Fifth Estate report was the candidate trying to be hobbled by the government of India. But in one way, that wasn't much of a mistake, because we found out during the campaign that Patrick Brown, who, when he was running for the leadership of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party, was banking a lot on his personal friendship with Modi as being something that would be beneficial to the province, now all of a sudden being blocked access um, to anyone pretty much within of note within the Indian government while he was running for the federal leadership race. So that friendship certainly didn't pay off for him, at least.
Mm-hmm.
They did end up asking Pierre about it once, and he shows a clip of Pierre being asked why he paid for his whistleblower's legal fees, who took down his main rival. And he basically gave a short answer and ran away. And as Jason says, okay, that's it then. Okay, nothing more to see here. Folks, move along. I wrote more about that here and cites an article there. Or the whole refusing to get a security clearance issue, calling it a trick and a trap meant to silence him, which led to this meltdown by CPC MP Michael Cooper. So running interference for PP there, and also led to other breakdowns from PP, particularly with members of the press. Speaking of Chinese interference, Pierre Poilievre also stood in the House of Commons and admitted that when he was Minister of Democratic Reforms, he knew about it and did nothing to stop Chinese interference. There was indeed that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he posts a link to that video, and, well, media stopped asking him about that too. Yesterday, Don Barlow reported that Pierre Poilievre had members of the media removed from his event after his speech. He was in Corner Brook a couple of days ago.
Yes.
Summoned all the media to come over. All the media did. And then when it was over, he said, oh, by the way, well, we're not going to have a Q&A session here. Thank you, stenographers. To which the entire press corps that was there said, no, F you. We're asking you questions. Says, well, your questions are, well, you're not welcome here. Well, welcome or not, it's our duty to be here. So we're going to ask questions. So belly up to that mic, boy. Apparently that was not the response of the press there. I guess they just went, oh, okay. Way to fight for us. Just... It's highly unusual for an event that the media was invited to cover. One could argue his handlers or himself wanted coverage of the speech without having to answer questions that may or may not have been covered in that speech. It's called controlling the narrative, says Don Bradshaw from NTV. And then, according to Jason, on the 15th, today, Pierre Poilievre was in St. John, New Brunswick, giving a standard stump speech at another gas station. He was looking rough and having a hard time reading his notes. And then there's another clip of that. And actually, Mr. Grizzly, do you have the article?
Yeah, I do. I have it right here.
Yeah.
You want me to show his Ormocto and how
Yes.
he struggled through that? Okay.
Yes, that one. Please.
Just a sec. I'll pop that up on the screen and give me a sec.
Because again, you'll have the Howard Haggard look in motion, not just a picture. You can say, oh, well, you just pick the most unflattering frame.
No, here we go. I have this right here.
A down payment takes 25 years to save up in Toronto. You used to be able to pay off a mortgage in that time. 67% of Canadians believe, after 8 years of Trudeau, that the next generation will be worse off than the one that came before. 50 military families in Aramonto, New Brunswick, are using a food bank. We have CBC Nova Scotia reporting that Nova Scotians got extreme power bills recently, which are leaving many of them choosing between eating and turning the lights on. There are now 35 homeless encampments in Halifax.
The hydro stuff is provincial, and the homelessness help is also provincial, buddy.
Yeah.
But you see, he's looking very puffy.
Yeah, he doesn't look good there. Well, and I have another clip here. This is a separate but related clip I will share with you in just a second here. And this is Greg McEachran discussing that India election leader incident. Let's just watch this. It's about 2 minutes, and just enjoy this because it is enjoyable.
Sudden, it seemed like everyone, in the rush because you were angry at Justin Trudeau, you were siding with India. So I encourage people who may have jumped into that rush to watch this. But there's a really interesting thing at the end where it repeats allegations that the Conservative leadership had the involvement of Indian agents in terms of buying memberships to help tip the balance for one of the candidates. And I find it remarkable that documentary's been out for about a week. And after all the heat and fury around this subject last fall, no one's talking about that this week.
Mel, it is an interesting one, the role of India in domestic politics. Also interesting that this documentary has been banned on YouTube in India at the government's request, citing national security or some other reason. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, this has been an issue, when I worked on the Hill, when I was still working for the NDP, is an issue that we obviously paid close attention to, but also we didn't have the choice. We were always asked about it anytime that those divisions about India, Sikh, like that was something that Jagmeet was asked often, and I think sometimes unfairly asked. So the unbalanced, or the fact that some people would talk about it and others weren't, that was something that Jagmeet has to kind of do that delicate dance all the time. So when we see that sort of stuff and we see the behind the scenes stuff, we've talked about foreign interference and how there may be some foreign interference from China. We saw New Democrats talk about we need to expand that and talk about India because some of those conversations were happening about how that had to do with the last election as well, whether it affected politicians here or whatnot. So I think the lack of follow-up on this, I think, to your point, is telling. But I do think it's scary. A Canadian was killed on Canadian soil. This is something we should all be taking super seriously. All politicians, everybody across the board, should be taken seriously. And I hope we don't see this continue to not take up space.
Okay.
Yeah, the special's been out for a week, right?
Yeah.
And barely a mention in mainstream media.
Yep. And she makes a good point about, whenever there's anything having to do with Sikhs and Indians, Mr. Jagmeet Singh, because he wears a turban, gets asked about it all the time. But the party that is alleged to have benefited from direct foreign interference from that government is not being asked a thing.
Yeah, you remember how they were bragging about how many memberships they sold.
Yep.
Remember that? They were bragging about how many memberships they sold to the party. Most ever in Canadian history. Oh, that's because they weren't Canadians, apparently. I mean, come on. We got the most ever. Yeah, but they're not Canadian citizens. They can't,
Yep.
But because anybody can be a delegate if you pay your fee, right? What is it, $10 or whatever they wanted to become a member? So anybody can, and because it's not a Canadian election, it's a different thing run by a private corp.
Yep. All those $10.
The rules are different, right?
Yep. Yep. And then he goes on, Jason goes on, was he actually hungover or just worn out from keeping up the full rage? I can't say that for sure. That was just an educated guess. We all remember that Pierre Poilievre, as leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, showed up acting completely wasted the night of his marathon voting stunt. That's a clip I've been looking for a long time because I couldn't find it again because we've mentioned this several times on the show. So, yes, let's play it now that we finally have it. This was the night that he had his telethon in the House of Commons, where they voted no to absolutely everything, and they tried to pass 20,000 amendments that got shot down in the first 5 minutes because they were improperly done. And he had all of his MPs stay there while he jutted off to a Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony for the first day of Hanukkah, which he did allegedly because he really cares about the Jewish community, but turns out it was really a secondary event because the main event he was going to was a 4-digit a plate fundraising dinner in Point Claire. And to be able to say, well, I really went for this, and the fundraiser happened to be happening, but the fundraiser was organized way before. And then he stopped in along the way. So he didn't have to sit in the House of Commons and do the dirty work of actually voting no, and thus preventing all Jewish MPs from spending time with family and community on the first day of Hanukkah, and all MPs in general, if they had any Jewish constituency in their electoral districts, of doing anything to mark the first day of Hanukkah, while he was. So there was only one person in all of Canada who was a federal politician who was getting pictures of himself doing something for the first night of Hanukkah.
Go figure.
And it was him.
So let's watch this clip. It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Ellis.
Mr. Ellis.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Kimmich.
Mr. Perkins.
Mr. Perkins.
Mrs. Stubbs.
Mrs. Stubbs.
Mr. Shear.
Mr. Shear.
Mr. Halland.
Mr. Halland.
Mrs. Gray.
Mrs. Gray.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Jennis.
Mr. Jennis.
Mr. Small.
Mr. Small.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Bazan.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Berthold.
Mr. Belton.
Miss Finley.
Miss Finley.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Abultayev.
Mr. Abultayev.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Seaback.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Viss.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Doherty.
Mr. Goodite.
Mr. Goodday.
Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Tucker.
Mrs. Kramp-Nyman.
Mrs. Kramp-Nyman.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Patzer.
Mr. Patzer.
Mr. Law.
Mr. Lobb.
Mr. Kitchen.
Mr. Kitchen.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Muse.
Mr. Redicott.
Mr. Redicott.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Van Popta.
Mr. Waugh.
Mr. Waugh.
Mr. Calkins.
Mr. Calkins.
Monsieur Lou.
Monsieur Lou.
Monsieur Généreux.
Monsieur Généreux.
Mr. General.
Mr. Genereux.
Monsieur Martel.
Monsieur Martel.
Mr. Couric.
Mr. Couric.
Mrs. Gallant.
Mrs. Gallant.
Mr. Caputo.
Mr. Caputo.
Mr. Vidal.
Mr. Vidal.
Mr. Dreeshen.
Mr. Dreeshen.
Mr. Tolme.
Mr. Tolme.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mrs. Wagenthal.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Nader.
Mr. Soroka.
Mr. Soroka.
Mr. McLean.
Mr. McLean. Look at him there.
Mr. McGuire.
Yep.
Being belligerent.
Yep.
Mr. McGuire.
Mr. Falk Provencher.
Mr. Falk Provencher.
Mr. Motts.
Mr. Motts.
Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Morrison.
Mr. Morrison.
Mr. Dowdle.
Mr. Dowdle.
The House will now wait for electronic voting period to end before resuming its proceedings.
So for people listening at home, that was probably not very interesting because it was the visuals that matter here. But most of the talking that was not the speaker or the person recording the vote that you heard was mostly him. Yelling and screaming and shouting and waving his arms a lot, talking to people across the aisle somehow with big goofy smiles. And yes, as many kids on the chat call that McDonald's night. Yes, indeed, McDonald's night. And as Kit PNC Bio made, and that's a statement I made also, he's at $1,000 a plate to dinner. I believe it was $1,600 or $700.
I thought it was $1,700.
Plate. Yeah, $1,700 plate to dinner. And he brings McDonald's in for his MPs. If they had a spine, they'd be pissed. That's exactly it.
Well,
because
here we have that. I have that too, that clip.
Yes, when he came back home as the daddy's home and he brought McDonald's for the kids.
Yeah, watch this. I'll turn the volume down because it's quite loud. Look at that.
They're talking about McDonald's and they're yelling, "Bring it home."
Yeah. Good Lord. Barking seals.
Pumping his fist in the air like he just brought back, Kobe beef for everyone.
Yeah.
You guys look incredible. Wow, what a beautiful crowd we have here. I thought I was going to meet a group of exhausted, weary,
All right, I've had about enough of that.
It's so again, if you're like watching that behavior, that was before he went into the house. He stumbled into the House of Commons after that.
Hmm.
So yeah, apparently for all that money in hospitality and expenses that we keep seeing every quarter, none of that was to actually make sure that his MPs that he forced to stay there all night actually maybe had a catered meal.
Hmm.
As we mentioned before, that's how he takes care of his own MPs. After making them stay up, work all night, and do his dirty work for him,
Oh yeah, I'll
for
bring
which
McDonald's.
he rode in comfort to the menorah lighting ceremony and got to press some flesh with some wonderful people,
Mhm.
as potentially as he was voting no to funding a Holocaust museum in Montreal and a Jewish community center in Vancouver, then carting off to a fundraiser dinner where I'm sure he did not eat McDonald's, and I'm sure he was probably served a few potent potables and lovely glassware. Comes home with McDonald's for everyone at past 1 something in the morning, after they've been there all evening, after having worked their full day. By the way, their full evening. Yeah, I would have been right pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember, so they asked for a boycott of A&W because the Prime Minister had A&W burgers. I can't. Some days I just can't.
Yeah. Kit Linda Adams says, notice how no one is calling for a boycott of McD's just because Skippy went there.
Mm. Exactly.
Cassie Lake calls the Hamburglar came back. Did you pay for those burgers, Pierre? Rumble.
Well, and Saucy's brought it up. And when Trudeau supports a Canadian restaurant, Pierre and his ilk go after the citizen who owns the restaurant. And it's not the first time they've done this.
No, not at all.
They went after the brewery recently. They went after the donut shop when he bought donuts. They're like,
Yep.
Actually, the A&W we have is the Canadian division. But I understand what you're saying. It's not a Canadian founded company. But A&W in Canada is a completely separate entity from A&W in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have anything to do with one another.
Mm-hmm. So, according to Jason in the article, that marathon voting stunt cost almost $2 million, by the way.
Yeah.
So, which,
because
again,
you
as
have
we
the
mentioned,
staff, you have all the security staff, you have all the policing staff, you have people at the ready if there's a medical emergency. I mean, paying a lot of overtime for a lot of people at Christmas time because he wanted to pull a stunt.
Yep. And the stunt was apparently, with those 20,000 amendments, as Jason says, they thought they were going to be able to hold our government hostage and keep the House sitting and MPs voting right through Christmas. And that famous quote of his, "You've ruined Christmas for Canadians. Common sense conservatives are going to ruin your vacation as well. We're going to put in thousands of amendments at committee and in the House of Commons, forcing all-night round-the-clock voting to block your $20 billion of inflationary spending and your economically destructive plans until you agree to our demands. Take the tax off farmers, First Nations, and families." Of course, the stunt completely failed.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid $2 million for a stunt that completely failed. And as Jason says, personally, I think Poilievre was banking on that stunt to trigger a snap election. He cheated to win the leadership of the Conservative Party. He knew it would eventually come to light and wanted or needed to have an election before it did. Now it finally came out that India interfered with the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race. Yet after the story aired on the Fifth Estate, Canadian media has all but ignored it until now. Just as I was writing this post, this happened on CBC's Power and Politics, which is the segment that you showed us with Greg McEachern.
Yeah, and
says
they kind of sidestepped the issue for the most part.
Yeah, that's what Jason says as well. Host David Cochran then moves the subject along, noting that the documentary has been banned in India. The discussion continues without further mention of what Greg brought up, to which somebody on Twitter's quoted Paul D. Heslip. However, David Cochran ragged the puck and worked the clock so that the topic of Pierre Poilievre's election to leader of the CPC couldn't happen. Greg McEachern put it on the table, and Cochran stifled the Poilievre talk. So yeah, while Pierre is not having some good weeks, his friends in the press are making his embarrassing moments just disappear and vanish. But if you're paying attention, you are seeing how he is, as Charles Adler diplomatically put it, temperamentally unfit
Mm-hmm.
for the job that he is seeking. And I believe that Mr. Adler is his assessment is particularly correct
Oh, yes.
on that one.
Bang on.
Yeah, absolutely bang on. We can't consider this acceptable. Damn it, we have standards. It's we're supposed to anyway. It would be really, really, really nice if they were somewhat applied. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
I would say yes, sir. We do. We do.
All right, kits and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Of course, sharing is caring. And, well, word of mouth is priceless. And you have the words, well, you have the mouse from which we want the words to come. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Mr. Grizzly has let me know through the chat on that we talk to each other every now and then when we send each other messages that we have we cracked over 1,000 live viewers for today's show. So thank you very much, everybody who took some time to tune in, and everybody who contributed to the chat as well. We really, really appreciate it. You make the show what it is, and we very much appreciate your input. Let's see, what else do we do? Because sharing is caring. We did that part. If you would not like to miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Grey Girl. If you scan that QR code that's right underneath my goatee, that will bring you to our pod page site. That's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it will be ready for you. It will come directly to your inbox. If you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine and go to our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube site. Kit Elaine, right on cue. I mentioned your name and there popped up the Have a Beyond Awesome Day, everyone. And remember to smash the button before you leave. We really appreciate the daily reminder. It does us a world of good. So if you do smash that button when you go to our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, stick around and smash the like button as well, and smash with the share button as well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just subscribe, share and like. It makes us happy. And if you would like to support us in other ways, the QR code that has appeared through right by Mr. Grizzly's head here brings us to our coffee page. That's coffee.com, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And that's where you can make a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund. And as I've mentioned before, we were a little backlogged on some thanks. So let's give some thanks right now. Kit Cassie mentioned when she made a donation, a hot chocolate and some kind words are all I can offer today to hopefully bring a smile. I'm guessing that was the day that I was feeling a little bit in the dumps after I had recognized that my trust had been betrayed. And yes, that hot chocolate on that day was particularly soothing, Kit Cassie, so thank you very, very much. We have Kit Vim that says, your hard work is so appreciated. Virtual hugs to you and the Dam Fam. I'm so grateful to know you all, and we are very, very happy that you have joined us, Kit Vim. Thank you for the support. Kit Aina, and Kit Aina actually helped me this time by actually writing sounds like Aina in the comment because I keep on forgetting. And Ina, if you are watching, I am really going to try to make sure that I remember that you are Ina and that Aina is Aina and not confuse you.
Ina. Let's call the whole thing off. I don't know.
Yes. Ina, Aina. Please don't turn the show off. Kit Aina says, This morning's takedowns of Michel Ferreri and Pierre Poilievre's WTF business were so good. Made my day. Thank you very much. And then we had a donation from Kit Cookie, who didn't leave a message, just wanted to leave us a little donation and some support. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And then Kit Cheryl, I get up every morning to tune in with a smiley face. Thanks, dear.
Cool.
And then we had Kit Cassie yet again. A little later on. Keep going and growing. Thank you for letting me participate in Ladies' Night. Yes, because for the kids who are listening at home, on International Women's Day that evening, we turned the mic over to Madame Fox, and she hosted some conversation for International Women's Day that is available exclusively on our YouTube page in two portions. We have part one and then part two, because at some point the restream feed conked out, so we had to start over. We had to continue.
I had no idea what happened. I was just sitting there all of a sudden like, huh? It went down.
Yeah. So it's in two parts. The second part right now is labeled Take Two. We might change the label on that, but it was an evening special that we had on that day. And so, yeah, as she said, keep going and growing. Thank you for letting me participate in Ladies' Night. Absolutely delightful. I believe that was the first time that Kit Cassie has appeared on our show, and then she came back for the pubcast on Saturday for a brief hello. And finally, Kit Wendy, who early last week sent something saying, thanks for making my morning every day, gents. Appreciate you, with a thumbs up, and keep up the good fight. With a little muscle there, bicep flex. So thank you so much, Kits and Cubs. We really, really appreciate all the support. And as we mentioned, if you would like to support us via our coffee endeavors, the QR code by Mr. Grizzly's Head. Once again, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And anything that you can donate is really appreciated. But of course, the gift of your attention is the one we most appreciate. If you would like to write to us, we love to hear from you. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. We really appreciate that. And we had a couple of letters over the past few days, which we have really appreciated. So thank you very much. I'm looking for them right here. We had one from Kit Ina, who mentioned to us after our interview on Friday, I am happy that you were able to interview Keith Stewart. However, I am disappointed with the interview. I would have liked to hear more rather from Mr. Stewart and somewhat less from you, Mr. Grizzly. Sorry, but I can't stomach any more rants about what a shit Poilievre is. It seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity. We thank you for the constructive criticism. I am ready and willing to admit that our show on Friday was not our best interview. We did try to do a little too much with the show. We had just with the circumstances, because you had to go walk Lola and whatnot. But and we had the Army Chris on as well, so we basically had 4 of us on that day for one guest. We normally don't do that. We usually try to put more focus on the guest. So yes, we tried something. It didn't work as well as we had hoped, and it was noticed. So we admit it. We could have gotten more out of our guest had we basically stuck to our usual format. But hey, we try things. We see if they work. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do.
That's why you play the game, right?
That's why we play the game. But we do appreciate the feedback, because it's important to know what is and what isn't connecting. Like we say, we want your comments, good, bad, or ugly. Just be gentle.
Look,
just be gentle.
We can't please everybody.
Yeah.
We will always try to do that, but we know we can't please everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. So, there's some times where we're just going to have a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
It happens.
And then we had Kit Lynn, who saw it a little bit another way.
Mm-hmm.
So keep up the awesome job with the Daily Beaver Morning Show. I never go to bed without watching it on YouTube. And as a Liberal Party of Canada supporter, as well as somebody who is thankful Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is leading our country, your show is a breath of fresh air. In all honesty, the only time I mute it is when Army Chris is talking because his hate for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau makes me sad. But on that March 15th, 2024 show, I found Keith Stewart very informative and learned so much from him. One more article, and then a suggestion for an article that we will read, which a lot of kids also do, bring us our attention to information and stories, which helps us a lot plan our show. Thank you very much. But see, here we go. One kid thought that it wasn't our best interview, and another kid found the interview very informative and learned from it. So, and I'm sure that kid Ina. Ina, when she made the comment, it's not that she didn't learn from the show and didn't find Mr. Stewart informative. I think it's more that she wanted to hear even more from him because he was bringing good information, and we, in terms of as hosts and as people who plan the show, got in the way of that, and that is fair criticism.
Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we fall, and I mean, I had to take the dog out because I didn't want her to,
Yep.
mess up my house.
Yep. But like I said, we appreciate it. That's the type of feedback we want. Like I said, even if it's criticism, it's constructive. You let us know what it is that we could do better. And we really appreciate that. We take it all in. We read absolutely everything, even though we don't have necessarily time to respond to everything. We do read everything, kits and cubs. So thank you so very much for this. Because democracy is something that you do, please write those letters to your MLAs, your MPs, your MPPs, your senators, members of your media. Let them know what cause, what situation in our society is of most importance to you, and what action you would like to see taken, and that you would like better or fairer or more honest or more complete coverage of that issue or attention brought to it. It's very important. Your letters do matter. So don't hesitate at all to put pen to paper. If you're writing your elected representatives, it's free. You don't even have to pay for a stamp.
Just drop it in the mail and address it correctly, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your eager beaver saying, it could be a tough world out there, kids and cubs, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, do you happen to have some words of wisdom for us?
Some days I really struggle to come up with something creative and intelligent to say. This is one of these days. I'm physically exhausted from the weekend because we marathoned. We had a few marathons. I mean, Friday morning show was a few hours. Then I worked all day. Then I went out for a beer. Nothing crazy Friday evening, I should say. And then Saturday, we had a marathon, 6.5 hours, 6 hours and 25 minutes to be precise. And I did consume about 5 Guinness too many.
I was texting Mr. Grizzly, we really need to wrap this up.
I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Right.
Quality's
all you have to see. It rarely happens to me that I get in that state, but when it does, all you have to do is go, you've had enough. You should probably stop now. Okay. I don't put up a fuss with that. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right. Let's it's time to go home. It's time to wrap it up.
It is true.
So yeah, if I was a little bit sloppy towards the end, I apologize. You can have a laugh at my expense. I don't mind it. But yeah, I'm just physically and emotionally exhausted today, and I don't really have anything to add to the conversation. I think other than stay ever vigilant and keep your eyes and ears open. Don't let our elected politicians that we pay for continue to lie to us. Just don't let them get away with it. That's all.
Yeah, indeed. And yes, Miss Shadika, I feel like my exit before the dam broke the dam and helped end the show. Thank you. That was a very, very helpful community service.
Yes, it was.
And it was a joy to finally get to meet you and see you, and Mohan as well. And you're right, Miss Shadika. He does have great hair, and he is very handsome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mentioned that. But then again, both of you have most excellent taste. So I think you both did very well there. But that's just me. Yes, Kid Michael. That's why you couldn't get me out to the club on Saturday night. I was trying to I was hoping, well, not hoping, but if the show was going to end early, I was going to pop off to the curling club to watch Team Heron play in the tiebreaker at the Ontario Senior Curling Championships. Unfortunately, he lost, so he didn't make the full playoffs. But a good effort, 4 wins and 3 losses in the round robin record, and got to the tiebreaker. If you're watching the World Women's Curling Championships, Team Canada has gotten off to a good start. Sometimes I feel a little anxious when I mention it on my show, because then it's like me talking about kind of jinxes it from that point on. They started great, 3-0. It's like, oh, they lost the next 3 games. Damn, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it. But that's going on, and so far Team Canada is doing very, very well with wins against Sweden, Denmark, and the United States in their first 3 matches. Let's hope that it continues. And the Canadian mixed doubles curling is on, doesn't get as much attention, and I don't know if there will be any TV coverage, but I know that there will be some internet one. If you've never had a chance to watch doubles curling, and if you do like it, like curling, or are intrigued about it, do take some time to pop in and watch it, because it's like the rules and stuff are the same, but it's a totally different game.
Mhm.
It's a totally different game than regular curling, and it's a lot more dynamic. So you might find it more to your liking if you've tried the 4-person game and didn't find it necessarily as stimulating as you'd like. The 2-person game might be more to your liking. It's faster paced, and each of the players have a little bit more to do, so it could be a little more interesting to watch in that sense. The matches also play faster, because only 5 rocks are thrown per end as opposed to all 8. So if you need your curling in smaller doses, that may be the way to achieve it. All right, Mr. Grizzly, please cue the rooster, and we will have a little bit more news about some Canadians who have made us proud. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors: the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters; CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community; and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, in a bit of news, if you are a hockey fan, the University Cup tournament took place. So which are the best university-based teams in Canada, and it seems that the University of New Brunswick Reds capped off a perfect season by winning the University Cup. They have gone 47-0, dating back to last year's playoff run and national championships. So
That's wild.
That's a pretty good. I don't think I've ever won something 47 times in a row, ever. So that's quite a performance. And for the women, the team from Concordia University won the U Sports Women's Hockey Championship for the second time in 3 years. So congratulations to the Concordia Stingers for that success. And in the world of acrobatic skiing, the king, Mikael Kingsbury, won a dual moguls gold for the 90th World Cup victory of his career.
It's crazy.
In the season finale.
The guy's just a machine. He's an unbelievable machine. There's nobody in skiing that is there's nobody in any professional sport anywhere at any level that comes close to his win percentage. He's something like 70%, 67 or 70% of the races he's in, he wins.
Yeah.
Nobody has a record like that in any sport of any type. He's just the king of kings when it comes to that. So his name is appropriate.
Yep, he's got the most men's World Cup wins in any Fédération Internationale de Ski Olympic discipline. So all of them, downhill, slalom, cross-country skiing, biathlon, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
He's
incredible. He's a
machine.
machine. He has 26 crystal globes to go along with 8 world titles, an Olympic gold, and 2 silvers.
Nobody even comes close.
Just all hail the king.
Yeah.
All hail the king.
I have
I
have a quick image for you here from St. Patrick's Day, in case you didn't see this yesterday. It's our Argentine doggo wearing my Ireland shirt. Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
Even the puppers. That's so lovely. All right, kids and cubs, you have an absolutely wonderful day. Make it special. Do something nice for yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Take care.
Bye.